Hi, everybody. My name is Heather Denning. I am an art therapist and art therapy instructor at Mercyhurst University in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I've been asked to create a video about the field of art therapy, so I'm excited to share some information with you. So the first question was, how did I get into the job that I currently hold? And what previous job experiences have you had? So I'll first answer that with my previous job from working at Mercyhurst. I worked as an art therapist at a community mental health center for about 20 years, and I primarily led group art therapy sessions for adults with chronic mental health disorders and also addiction problems. And previous to that job, I worked as a case manager at a community mental health center. So for both of those positions, I would say that the training programs I went to for art therapy both connected me to those jobs through different internship experiences that I had. I came to Mercyhurst about 5 years ago. I had always taught some art therapy coursework on the side at Ursuline College in Cleveland, Ohio area, and really had a passion for teaching and spreading the news about art therapy. So I found myself at Mercyhurst, and it's been a great fit. So sometimes you can work in a career or have a field of study that you specialize, and you might find down the road that you have a passion to teach or inform others about your career or your job. I mentioned case management. That is a job also that was in a community mental health center. And for case management, what I did is connected people on my caseload to resources that they needed in the community. So it might be transportation, it might be navigating how to apply for disability through Social Security. But those were the kind of tasks that I did. And I also led some art activity groups and a day treatment program. And that's when I had just a bachelor's degree in art therapy. I do want to note for the field of art therapy, a master's degree is required at minimum. So although Mercyhurst has an undergraduate program in art therapy, and you're going to find some other programs out there as well, just know that it's something that would require a big commitment of time and finances because it requires an advanced degree. So what is a typical day like in your job or career field? So for me, when I worked as an art therapist, I would start my day really by checking messages and emails that might contain any updates on the clients that were coming in for the group that day. So sometimes we would have messages from a family member, sometimes the individual themselves. Maybe there was an update from other providers that worked at the community mental health center just to kind of inform me of what I was walking into when I went into the group art therapy session for the morning. After that, then I would really go to my art supplies and get everything kind of set up before the clients would come in for the art therapy group. And I had a pretty nice array or choices of supplies that I would make sure were in good shape for people to use. I would have them presented, and out for the clients to use when they got there. I would always give my group members the theme connected to their treatment. So an example might be if we were working on anger management, I might ask them to do something with paint, maybe some expression of their anger. So we had a 3-hour group, and the first portion we were actively engaging in creating some works of art. And then the second portion was really talking with the individuals about their artwork and kind of processing the information, the thoughts and feelings that would come out from creating the artwork. After the group ended, usually, there was some type of closure. At times I would have individual intervention or discussion with individuals that might want a little more of my time after group. And then there's a portion of the job that requires a lot of paperwork and documentation, almost like what a nurse might do. So we would have to record in their medical record kind of what happened during the group. So for working as an art therapist, you need to be artistic or have a knowledge about a lot of different art materials, but you also have to have a good command of writing and communication as well. What type of training or education is required for this field? So, to be an art therapist, as I said, you need at minimum a master's degree in art therapy. Many training programs are combining both counseling, education, and art therapy on a master's level, so you can become licensed as a counselor in the state that you reside in. And that's really important because all of us want to get paid in our future job. And although art therapy might sound like a great idea, if you're not able to bill for the services, then you're not going to be able to get paid. So many art therapists are licensed as counselors in their respective states. Some states have licensure for art therapists that is separate from counseling. Right now in the state of Pennsylvania, that's something that the professional organization of art therapists is pursuing. But right now, there's really only a handful of states that have licensure in art therapy. So it is really important to keep in mind it is a long-term commitment, and combining the counseling and art therapy education is going to make you more marketable down the road. First, a bachelor's degree right out of high school, you have a couple options. So there are some undergrad art therapy programs that will give you all the coursework necessary, all the prerequisites to get into a graduate level training program. If you hear some barking in the background, that's my little dog Zeke who's in the room with me. So some folks have that undergraduate degree in art therapy or pre-art therapy. Another option would be to be a psych major or a art studio major or a double major and kind of combine studio work and psychology classes, because most of those graduate programs are going to require both studio art classes and psychology classes to get in. Okay, so what are the skills that are needed for a job like an art therapist? And also, what skills are needed to work as a team? So because I worked in a group setting at a community mental health center, I definitely had to have good skills in interacting with my colleagues. So being able to compromise, but also being able to assert myself, being able to explain what art therapy was and promote art therapy as a field, because I was the only art therapist on the job, and really keeping lines of communication open with other providers, such as maybe their individual therapist, the psychiatrist, in all in efforts to make it a good treatment for our client, so that we were all supporting the client's treatment plan and what they needed to work on to get better. So I definitely had to lean on interpersonal skills, both with the clients that I worked with other professionals. There are some art therapists that work in private practice, just with individuals one at a time. It may have less interaction with a team around them. In my situation, and I loved it because I really like working with people, it was constant interaction with both other professionals and clients. Some personal skills and qualities that you need are, you really need to have good self-care skills in being mentally well yourself. So if you are working with people that have very severe mental health problems like I did, or addiction problems, you're going to burn out if you don't take care of yourself. So practice what you preach. So finding creative outlets for wellness for yourself, finding what it is that really rejuvenates you personally and gives you, inner balance or peace. So it might be an outlet such as exercise, spending time with your pets, your friends, your family, reading, whatever it is, you definitely need to be tapping into that. It's so important, especially in the human services fields, not just art therapy, but I would say counseling, social work, nursing, education, that you're going to be working with some very challenging individuals and situations, and you need that time away to take care of yourself. All right, what is the income range and benefits? So I would say that it really can range pretty greatly depending on what type of job you have as an art therapist. So I would say on the low end, probably starting out in the like 40,000 and ranging, I would say going up to 65,000. So I would say that it depends. So there are some art therapists that might find themselves working more as an activity director, for an example, in a nursing home setting. That might not require a master's degree, so the pay grade might be lower, more on a bachelor's level. If you're working in a clinical setting, it's probably going to be closer to high 40s, close to 50. You might want to go into business and work in private practice and build up, and see many, many clients so you could, make more money than that. I would say that, it's really a calling, art therapy, or doing, any position that's in the human service field. And none of us are in it to get rich. But with that said, I've always been able to support myself and have a comfortable, be comfortable as far as having a home and taking care of my needs. But that's about the range, 40 on the low end to, I'd say, top end 65,000. All right, do you have any opportunities for advancement or promotion in your profession? So I would say that definitely happened for me, luckily. So when I first started, I was primarily doing just direct care, art therapy with clients, adults that had mental illness and addiction problems. And then over time, I was able to be promoted to manage a whole program within the community mental health center. So there's some pros and cons to that. So on one hand, it was a promotion. I was able to go up the pay scale a little bit, but then I was doing more administrative work and less art therapy. So on one hand, working with a very chronic population for a long period of time, you might need a little reprieve from that at some point to avoid burnout. But on the other hand, administrative work can become pretty tedious. So trying to find the balance between that sometimes can be tricky. I know for myself, as I transitioned to being more of an administrator, I really miss the direct care and doing art with clients and working with people. And that's why I love working at Mercyhurst so much, as I could do art, with the students that come into the program. So I definitely think there's opportunity to move up. With that comes more responsibility, and you might lose a little bit of the creative aspects of art therapy that you're doing in a managerial role. But there's definitely opportunity to move up. Okay, next question is the need for your line of work increasing, decreasing, or remaining steady? I can say the need for mental health care right now, addiction treatment, wellness, is only increasing. So I entered the field over 20 years ago. Art therapists primarily were working in mental health clinics or hospital settings, but I'm seeing that broaden quite a bit to wellness centers, art museums, prison settings, community settings like like a library, an art center, different medical settings that are outpatient or inpatient. So the places that art therapists work are constantly expanding. Also in educational settings like through guidance or school systems, as well as private practice and opening your own business. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I see that it's growing. What do you like or dislike about your job? So I would say the thing that I liked most about working as an art therapist is just that direct time with clients, watching them create their own artwork, and sometimes engaging with them doing artwork. The things that I disliked about it, of course, were, at times you had to confront some very challenging situations where somebody might have some suicidal ideations. You might have to navigate some pretty severe mental health crisis situations as an art therapist. So it wasn't that I disliked it. I guess it was just more challenging. I guess it would be a better word. And I already mentioned some of the administrative or paperwork tasks that I had to do. Those were probably my least favorite. I would say, though, with any type of job in human services, there's going to be a fair amount of documentation or paperwork that you're going to have to do. One of the advantages, and also a note that I want to say that I like so much about working as an art therapist, it was never boring. I can guarantee you that. And, even I was working with the same group of clients that were in long term treatment for a very long period of time. And even though it was a similar group, sometimes the same people, I always was seeing something new and innovative through their artwork. So just being able to tap into creativity, get to know people, see how they progress with the use of art, that was just so rewarding. Some disadvantages, not every person that you work with in art therapy is going to recover or get well. So it's sad, to see if your clients relapse, drop out of treatment, and, ultimately, they could pass away or take their own life, especially working with folks that have very severe levels of depression. So that's something that, you have to think about, if you're going to work as an art therapist in that kind of setting. Is that something that you could handle personally, knowing that that could happen? All right, what classes would I suggest high school students take to prepare for this line of work? I would definitely recommend psychology, so a general psychology class. I would also recommend painting, ceramics, drawing, and digital arts. So if you can engage in those classes, that would be wonderful. If you have any other advanced art classes at your school, like printmaking, mixed media, sculpture, those would be ones to take advantage of as well. But I would definitely think that if you have psychology as an elective class, you want to take that. And you might want to see if you could shadow, like, either come visit me. I'd be open to talking with you, or you could email me with any questions. And there are a couple art therapists in the Erie area, not too many, but you can go on the website, the American Art Therapy Association, and they have an art therapist locator tab, and you can kind of research where art therapists are in the area, and maybe you can talk to them or shadow them. It might depend on where they're working, if they allow outside visitors or not, especially during the pandemic. It might be difficult, but they might be willing to talk with you, and I certainly would be willing to talk to anybody individually if you have more questions. I would also say, besides academics, just having a good life balance. Are you doing, besides academics, are you engaging in fun activities as a student and learning how to manage stress as a student? So that's going to help you both when you're in college or at university, but also help you in your career when you might be confronting some stressful situations with clients as an art therapist. So learning from a young age how to, practice wellness for yourself and having a balanced life is ultimately, being well is the most important. All right, if I could give young people one piece of advice about preparing for the world of work, what would it be? So I would say just take every opportunity you have now as a student before you enter your career to shadow, to learn more about a field of study, really investigate. You just have so many tools at your hand, through the computer, that you can learn about so many different fields of study. And then the other one would be that when you think about shifting to a work life or career down the road, just the whole idea of professionalism, thinking very carefully about what you post on social media as a young person. That's something that, might come back to bite you, during college admissions or working, in a career like as a therapist. So just making solid choices, as a young person, that's going to set you up for having a happy life and being a professional. So, returning phone calls on a timely manner, communication, being on time, and professionally dressing and presenting yourself to other people, and working on good communication skills. That's going to help you in any line of study. All right, COVID. So it's the last question is, how has COVID impacted your career and how have you adapted. So I am actually I am going to run a group tomorrow at my previous employer. I kind of stayed on as a fill-in. And most of the art therapy groups are going to be remote or on Zoom. So thinking about what art materials would the person have on hand in their home, or just knowing going into the session like that not everybody is going to have the art materials that I could provide if they were in person. So that's been the biggest impact, is really having to be even more flexible, thinking about what art materials are accessible to people. And even though we can connect on Zoom or through a camera, it might be a little different than, it is different from being in person. So sometimes as a therapist, you're really looking for nonverbal cues from an individual, and you might not be able to see that, especially if they choose not to be on camera, right? So facial expressions or things like that, you have a little more challenge to kind of running the session and getting all the information you would have if you were, in person. So those are the questions that were emailed to me in advance about art therapy. And I'll just end by giving you some basic information. That art therapy, most simply is a career that uses art materials to help people in a variety of different settings. It's a very rewarding career. It's very interesting. There's a lot of different places you could work as an art therapist. There's a lot of different areas of specialty, like trauma work, working with veterans, working with youth, working with people with medical illnesses. So I think that there's a lot of choices within the field, and you can kind of gravitate towards an area that really you have a passion about. So I would just say that if you would like to contact me, my email is hdenning, DENNING, @mercyhurst.edu. And I would be happy to talk with you further about the field of art therapy, or hopefully come in person when I can to meet with you. But it's definitely a career that has been very fulfilling and I'm very passionate about. And in whatever you do as a student, if you have a passion about what you're doing in life, you'll never have to work a day of your life. It's just going to be a joy to do what you do. So enter a career that you have a passion for, and you're going to be more fulfilled as an individual. All right. Thank you for your time. And again, I'd be happy to speak with any one of you again if you have some questions. So please reach out.